Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. This episode will be jumping into the music of 1997. I know everybody, we're here already. I'm Michael, John's on the other side, tolerating my bullshit.
Dude, you weren't kidding when you said I was going to have to be listening to a bunch of ska in the 90s. Gee, mini Christmas, man.
I know. It's going to be this way for a few years, and then you're going to have to suffer pop punk if we make it this long. You might cap out.
Especially once we hit the 2000s, it's going to be a lot of metal. I apologize in advance.
Is it this intense? Because this was fucking intense.
Some of it might be, yes.
Oof.
But then again, you're going to have at least bare minimum one or two more of not one particular artist, one particular genre. But yeah, you got your first step, and you'll probably have two more, and then I think that's all I'm going to do for that.
Am I torturing you at all with mine? Can you get through the albums?
We'll talk about we'll talk about some of this.
Alrighty, so I'm up first, doffing my hat to the crowd, taking a couple warm-up swings, and I'm throwing out Clumsy by Our Lady Peace is my first album of 1997.
Now, we did hear that first album, right?
Right, Navid, 90, it was 95 or 96?
It was like 94, 95, something like that, right? Navid?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was thinking that we did, and because it seemed familiar, and okay,
Wind up.
okay. I will say this: Clumsy, 4 a.m., and Carnival were all right. I didn't dig the album, but I didn't hate it. I just kind of found this thing to effectively be like a low-rent Smashing Pumpkins with some Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
Like the song "Let You Down" is a very good example of what I'm talking about.
It was really big for me. Me and my sister listened to this a lot, and I don't know, I just thought, it is very much like Smashing Pumpkins. I don't see too much of Stone Temple Pilots there. But it's really like pensive lyrics and stuff like that, and more challenging. I think that a lot was going on with, because there's the new stuff that you're going to be listening to here with the punk, pop punk, coming up in the happy rock and ska.
That's the thing. I will say this does sound like something that would have been big in '97.
Yeah.
So
this is their biggest album. I was looking this up. Do you know what? In America, in order to hit diamond status, you have to sell 10 million records. Do you know how many you have to sell in Canada to hit diamond?
1 million?
1 million, yeah. I just was surprised.
Okay. It had to be diamond, yeah. It would have to have been in the millions somewhere, but I kind of figured if you're differentiating the two, then yeah, it's like, yeah, it'd probably be like you have to at least cross the million mark.
Yeah. I think it's interesting is that they opened for Van Halen on this tour, and I think that was a huge mistake. That those two do not have similar sounds.
Oh no! That would have been very awkward. Honestly, that is like when I saw one of the tours I did actually do it as a photographer. I saw the headlining act was Bullet for My Valentine, and one of the openers was Chiodos. And Chiodos did not belong there.
Yeah, that's way too intense.
And was one of the better band of the lineup, really. But
yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I think the worst I've ever heard was Beastie Boys opening for Madonna, and it's just two wildly different crews.
Yeah, no. That's not...
Yeah, so the one thing that changes in this band you're going to see, because the next three albums I think are going to make my list. I really love this band. Is that they had Canadian producers and songwriters for the first few albums, and then they would team up with Bob Rock around the early 2000s. And this guy was, Metallica, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, more mainstream, harder rock. And they tried more of a pop sound. But I know, it's kind of like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones before they redid their sound. It's very particular, and it's not exactly like a mainstream sound. He has a very weird way of singing, and I think the lyrics are a little complicated for top 40 radio, but I actually like the early version of Our Lady Peace better.
Yeah, it's like, I will just say this, I kind of wish there was a little bit more to it for me.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't recall my reaction to the first album. I don't think it was all beyond, like, Yeah, I heard it.
No, well, I
So
remember.
I think at least have more of a. I think I have more to say on this, or feel like I had more to say on this time.
Yeah, well, you
than I did
you
last.
you said when you listened to the first one that you said, well, they have potential, and I'm looking forward to their future albums.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's like I was kind of going. I'm waiting to see them, whatever it is that's going to like strike me and make me go, oh my god. It's kind of like when I first heard. Well, not first heard, but when we started listening to like all the stuff like Pearl Jam, and all of a sudden I kind of discovered Ten for the first time, even though I'd heard the album before.
Right. These guys
That's
are, yeah, they're more in the vein, like, I think the complication and the oddness of Pearl Jam, I would say, but they do sound more closer, I think, in structure to Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, and that was the thing that kind of I'll use this phrase, but I didn't hate listening to this thing.
Yeah.
But
Do
it
you,
kind
do
of
you
bummed
remember?
me out.
Now, you do remember the first single they had off Navi, which was kind of did okay, but did you remember this at all? Do you remember Superman's Dead? It was like their biggest song.
I remember the name. I do not remember the
Oh,
song.
okay, yeah, that one it played like crazy, at least where I lived, and that and Clumsy were really big. The next two albums had 2 or 3 hits off them, but they never really broke over from the alternative charts onto the top 40.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely go like, yeah, I definitely, in the retrospect hearing, as I said, it definitely feels like something that would have been big at the time.
Yeah. All right, what's your first one?
My first one is an album that I believe is absolutely perfect and is probably the best mainstream rock album of the 90s, and it's Foo Fighters' The Color and the Shape.
Do you prefer the original version of Everlong? I do. I don't like the acoustic, the one that was actually bigger.
Yeah, I do prefer the rock version of it. There's stuff that's nice about that acoustic one, but overall, I prefer it as a kind of a pumped up love song as opposed to a little bit more of a introspective song.
Yeah, I want to say the next album is my favorite one, but this is definitely top tier for me. They're not fucking around with their sound. They just hone it tighter off of, what was the first one called? Was it self-titled? It wasn't self-titled, was it?
The first one was self-titled, yeah.
Okay. In this one and in their videos, oh my god, did I look forward to their videos. This is where they hit their stride. They had a couple of fun, interesting ones on the first album, but this is where like they have a vision for what they want to do. And it's always kind of offbeat and kind of funny, and I don't know. Go ahead.
Like this thing has like, I mean, the 3 singles that really came from this, Monkey Wrench, My Hero, and Everlong, are stellar songs. But this thing has so many amazing, just deep cuts that you wouldn't really think of. It's like, you like I think truly 2 of the best cuts off this album are "See You" and "Walking After You," which are like slow.
Yeah, "Walking After You" is the best one I think off this album. Yeah.
Yeah, there's soft songs. It's like, I'm pretty sure as an audience you have gotten to know me and my musical taste and stuff. So I'm going like, these soft songs are some of the best rock songs, from the 90s. That I should hope that carries something for you guys.
Well, it's interesting looking at this. This album held on a lot longer than I realized, because by the time this album is done, they are ready for their 99 album. And because of My Hero, which I don't originally think was supposed to be a single, it's just MTV picked it for Varsity Blues. Do you remember they were pushing that song so hard with that trailer?
Yeah, and in a way it makes sense because it's a song that feels like it should be in a movie.
Yeah. Well, and God, the drum work on this is so different than the first album, and that I think really what makes their sound, like this solidifies their sound now, is those hard pounding drums.
Right. Well, it's like the first album is effectively a Dave Grohl solo project, whereas this is a band.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I will say this though, here's the one thing I will knock the album for is the extended edition of the album. There's a god-awful cover of Killing Joke's Requiem on it.
Yeah, I haven't heard
like, it basically, it's like all the bonus tracks are songs that were on the singles, like B-sides to singles and whatnot. And, it's like there's, I think, Baker Street, Requiem.
Oh yeah, I knew that they did Baker Street somewhere, and I couldn't remember where it was from.
Yeah, there's a couple, there's like one or two other covers, and yeah, it's ironic because Dave Grohl would eventually, a few years later, play drums on a Killing Joke record, and he does this terrible cover of a Killing Joke song. But overall, yes, I still hold this album as truly like one of the highest esteemed albums ever. And that is it for me on that one.
Okay, so my next one is, let's face it, Mighty Mighty Bosstones. Oddly, I didn't realize it was next. I just mentioned it. I know some people hate this album because this is when they sold out. I'm making quotation marks, everybody. You can't see them. When they had more of a pop sound. Like, the first two albums are a mixture of ska and core, like hardcore rock. I mean, I think you heard the first one.
It was like first or second album.
Yeah, the second one's way more intense, and something happened. All of a sudden, ska finally broke through around '96, and I think that might have been part of the reason why the Mighty Mighty Bosstones changed their sound. Yeah, I mean, and it's what they've kind of stuck with since. They ditched the core. I just don't think the hardcore was as accessible, and I think there's a lot more on their mind than before. Like, there's two schools of ska, which I've talked about before. There's the more fun-loving, like, we're, high school kids in a band and goofing around like the Real Big Fish, and Save Ferris, which we'll discuss later. But, then there were some that were more rooted in, like, the original punk sound and the ideas of what they were talking about. And Mighty Mighty Bosstones were much more socially conscious than a lot of the ska bands that broke through.
And I will definitely say this: I thought this album started out far more interesting than the previous album that we touched on.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely liked this one a lot more. Now, it also does help that it had a recognizable song for me, and I really like that song. I don't think this would be something I would have owned, but I had a hell of a lot more fun with it.
Yeah, well, the first 4 or 5 are straight up just great pop songs. Noise Brigade, Rascal King, Royal Oil, and The Impression That I Get, and then it finishes off with Let's Face It, which really focuses on, like, racism and bigotry and stuff like that. I just feel like they had a lot more on their mind than just doing 80s covers and goofing around like a lot of the ska guys would do. But yeah, The Impression That I Get was everywhere. It was in so many movies and trailers and stuff like that because of the hook of the horns. But also, if I remember correctly, it was about an AIDS test. Am I wrong?
Oh, that I don't know.
I was about, he's finding out all his friends are having to get AIDS tests, and then he's waiting around for his results.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that because you have that, if you actually listen to lyrics, and I can't think of like the main chorus stuff, but even just the chorus is like, I've never had a knock on wood, but I know someone who has, it's like, and it's the impression, the impression that I get, and you're just kind of like, it's definitely not a really happy song, even though it's all upbeat and pulse pounding and all that stuff.
Well, and on this one, they back off his real gravelly screaming that he would usually do. There's only a little bit of it in here. And they do more harmonies. They bring in the rest of the band to flush out, their sound. All right, you're next.
My next one, is going to be Sehnsucht by Rammstein.
Du hast me. If you want to know what this album is known for, is that song. My best friend had this album, and I don't know what he loved it, but I remember him sitting there going, "Oh yeah, I don't know what they're saying on any of these songs." Yeah, dude, did you listen to the song you bought the album for? None of it's in English.
Oh yeah, here's the thing: if you want to be very creeped out and disturbed, look for the translations of these songs. There's some fucked up stuff in some of these songs.
Yeah, it's funny is I don't know a single thing they're saying, but I'm really into the sound. And is this considered industrial? What is this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Rammstein is one of the few industrial bands that really hit it big and then never really left that sound.
Okay.
I mean, you had Nine Inch Nails, who started industrial and then kind of wasn't, and then kind of was again. Rob Zombie would, especially in White Zombie, would kind of tiptoe in it. He would be a tourist. It's more so when he became a solo artist, he went a little more so in it. Marilyn Manson is basically, if you're going to go by industrial standards, is a total fucking poser.
He's like the Alice Cooper of that. Alice Cooper considered hard rock, but for a lot of his stuff, it was not hard rock. He was just kind of cabaret, dark cabaret.
Yeah, it's like there's goth stuff to it. There is industrial tinges to it, but it's not necessarily flat out industrial.
Yeah.
Rammstein started as an industrial band and still is an industrial band.
Yeah, it's I'm not a big fan of industrial, but I did enjoy this album. I just don't know what the fuck they're saying.
Yeah, it's basically they're part of the New Deutsche Hard movement, which is the New German Hardness subgenre. Which is like bands like Oomph and Megahertz.
We are the New German Hardness.
Yeah, my favorite band, one of them in there is Icebreaker. But the album title is Desire. And it's a lot better than their first album. The first album's fine. There's some good jams on it, but Du Hast, and that song's a banger, but the other big single that came from it was Angel, which is, I think, a far better song. And, this stuff has things like, there's a song called Klavier, Piano, which is a slow, emotional song. And the song Eifersucht, which is a song called Jealousy, which is very interestingly kind of goofy piano in it, like, well, synth, not piano, but synthy sounds to it. It's very hard, angry album, but yet has goofy shit on it, like the last song, which has like cartoon sound effects in it. It's a ride. It's a ride to go on.
Alright, so my next album is Ben Folds 5, Whatever and Ever Amen. I know, look, the big hit off this, the one that made their career, is depressing as fuck. But I love the rest of this album. Another song about something, like, it's about abortion, and wow, it's a bummer. But other than that, I just love their piano, bouncy fucking sound, and it just gets me going.
Well, it's like, I still feel about them kind of how I felt with the first album, where I can definitely respect them for being talented, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I did dig One Angry Dwarf and 200 Solemn Faces, and on my Spotify list, I now have my first Ben Folds 5 song, Steven's Last Night in Town.
I love Kate. Kate is the second single off this one. It didn't go very far, but I love it.
But I will say this, I really would like to see them live, but like with a full orchestra.
Yes.
I would love to see Selfless, Cold, and Compromised, like, fully orchestrated and stuff.
The third band, or the third album that they did is their best. And for some reason, I don't understand why bands just break up when they're at their peak. Is it ego? What is it? Not wanting to share the money? Like, hey, I'm not the founder of this anymore. I'm solo. I can take all the money myself. It just seems so stupid. And then when they can't sell anymore, they get back with their band. Look at you, Bon Jovi. That's it for me. Sorry. It's the same as the first. Just more fun.
I don't know. Well, my next one is going to be Devin Townsend's Ocean Machine, Biomech.
Okay, so this is the one where I don't think I listened to both of them. I didn't realize that it was two different albums when I was first reading it. So I can't remember which one I listened to, but I was truly surprised by how much I liked this one. This was a big, great rockin' album. Way different than the spin-off one you recommended.
Yeah, what's funny is, it's like Devin Townsend. We've heard him before because he was the singer on the Steve Vai album that I had you do.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And basically, he becomes better known for the band we'll talk about on my next go around. But this is more in line with the sort of music that he really wanted to make. It's this mix of prog rock, metal, and some ambient stuff. It's like a heavy Pink Floyd album. And originally, the reason why the album has such an awkward title is the band was supposed to be called Ocean Machine, with the album title being Biomech. But no one knew, it's like it got released in Japan under that title, and that was it. And there was no recognition. So it came back where he just went, you know what, we're just going to throw my name on it, and now it's a Devin Townsend album, and it's, kind of trying to cash in on the fact that he made big on Strapping Young Lads fame. So it's like, all right, well, here's now, even though this is a separate band, it's my solo project, and here you go. And yeah, it's like Seventh Wave, the opening track, Life, Night, Voices, Voices in the... Oh, crap, I think I messed up. But there's amazing stuff on this album.
Uh-huh.
It just, unfortunately, it just took him a long time to kind of get out of the shadow of his more successful extreme metal band.
Right. Which I had a hard time with. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, don't worry. What's your next one?
All right, Prodigy, Fan of the Land, which made your list, and you were nice enough to give it to me. I can't believe how fucking big this album was, how influential and groundbreaking it was, especially with sales and opening up this kind of sound to the mainstream. And they didn't get another album together for 7 years, and I mean they just lost all momentum. What happened with this band?
Honestly, I don't know. They did have a little DJ album that came out in between this and the other one.
Yeah, that doesn't count, though. That doesn't count.
It was like the Dust Brothers, but honestly, that's kind of a thing with electronic artists. Is they depending on, it's either you're going to be super prolific, or you're going to be releasing an album every 20 years or so.
Okay.
It very much, or I should say, there'll be side projects and alternate projects and this and that and this. And what's kind of funny is, this was huge because they had these videos that played on MTV, and I guess it makes kind of sense because this is like electropunk hip hop, a little bit more so than like any other electronic album at the time.
Right. Using more samples and having DJs come in. I mean, a sound that the Gorillaz kind of would copy.
Yeah, it's like basically like this, like Music for the Jilted Generation, which I love, is a lot more of like a rave album, and this was more like something that you really would bump in your car because you would sit there and like you could see Prodigy playing at a metal show or something.
Yeah, I know. I listen to this all the time, and I was just blown away by it. And this for me opened up. I had listened to, I had a couple electronic albums, like one of those like greatest hits of electronica. One of those cheats. Nothing from a specific band. And then this was like, holy fucking shit! I gotta discover more of this. If this is the most 1997 album of 1997.
Oh, I love this album so much. But yeah, it is. I do prefer. As I will still say, I do prefer like their little more ravey sounds of the past, and I think this is the last thing that they did that was worth listening to as well.
Oh, really? Well, no, I like what is it, Invaders? Something, the one that you used a lot.
Invaders Must Die.
Yeah, I really like that album. But like on this one, of course, you have the Firestarter is the one that really got out. You knew it hit the big time when they're using Firestarter in a Jean-Claude Van Damme trailer. You're like, oh, this is they made it. Smack My Bitch Up is the one that got in trouble, of course.
Which the video for that is remarkable because it has that big twist at the end that you don't see coming. It's just, you've seen the video, right?
I can't remember it though.
It's okay. Basically, it's first-person shot, scenes of like debauchery and violence and stuff, and then it's like, and you go like, okay, it's obviously because it's a guy, guy singing and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be it's a guy doing all this stuff, and it's when you get to the very end, the person looks in a mirror and it's a lady who's basically gone out and basically raised all the hell in the world, and it's like doing all like tons of debauchery and everything, and sexual hijinks and whatnot. But you're expecting it to be this dude, and holy crap, it's a chick, and wow, no one's, I think everyone just kind of went, no one waited to the end of a video to even go like, oh, okay, they pulled the rug out from under us and actually, went against our preconceived notions of what this thing was about.
Right. Of all the songs off this that are well known, I think the one that's my favorite, no one ever talks about, and it's a lot calmer, is Minefields.
Yeah, that was on the Matrix soundtrack.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. Yeah. It's so big and so influential, and it's sad that was kind of the only one for people. I guess you said the rest of them suck, but I just expected these guys to have like an album every 3 years or so, and at least have some sort of connection to the mainstream.
Yeah, I think it's just I didn't really follow them too closely, but it always feels like it's one of those. We hit big. We're constantly doing tours. Addiction issues.
Yeah, I remember that.
Let's kind of go off, and we'll do other projects with other people here and there, and just kind of live off the residuals until we actually can figure out what we want to do. Plus ego and infighting and whatnot.
That happens, yeah. What is your next one?
My next one is City by Strapping Young Lad. If you had liked this album, my jaw would have been on the floor, and it's the thing. I knew you weren't gonna like it. I specifically, this was gonna be the album I was gonna do, and I thought about it, and it's like, yeah, I also should do Devin's other album, because these two albums are actually a pair.
Oh, they thematically go together?
They thematically go together because it's, especially like in the between the two albums, there is two, on each album, one song that is specifically about the same night.
Okay.
Where it's Night on the Devin Townsend album is the exact same song as Detox, where it's basically out in Japan, totally messed up, and not knowing where you are and what's going on. On one aspect, Detox is about kind of like the disorientation of it, kind of, it's the more aggressive, angry song. Just kind of like, I'm high as hell, I don't know what's going on, people are looking at me, what's going on. Whereas Night is also about that, where it's the beauty of being in a foreign land, the beauty of being in a place where you take in these sights, and it's, what is this, what is this I'm seeing? This is amazing. So you kind of have this from two separate perspectives, but it's the exact same event.
Yeah, I got nothing. It was just so intense. I was like, I made it like 3 songs in. I was like, oh fuck, I can't.
But yeah, it basically, Strapping Young Lad. It's it right out of the gates kicks you down, and then just starts curb stomping you until it ends. It truly is one of the most brutal albums out there. It is intense. It is the best album that band did. Not the most accessible. Not the most, it's like, not the song that has the most well-known song off from the band. But if you're going to ever hear what Strapping Young Lad does, what it feels like it to be in concert, this is that album, because I've seen them twice. I have felt my rib cage shatter from the blast beats from those drums.
Good Lord!
It is intense and it is amazing, but yeah, not for the faint of heart. But that is it. That is all.
All right, my next one is one you're going to scoff at. Everybody's going to scoff at this. But I'm telling you, when Smash Mouth first started, they were more legit. And yes, I love their cheeky, hey, let's appeal to mom and dads, we're a family band. It's fine. I love the Aquabats, that's what they are. But I do say the first album was pretty legit, and then all of a sudden that second album, they're like, "Hey, let's get more eccentric and weird, but not good weird." And lots of cover songs. They're so known for their cover songs, and yes, there is a cover song here too. You can throw that away. It's a last track.
Okay, I will say this. I think that's probably the only song on the well. Actually, that's not true. I like "Walking on the Sun," but that's the cover's like the only other song that I don't think is a crime against humanity.
Wow, because
well, okay. Let me tone that back a little bit. I get what they're kind of going for. They're trying to go for this ska punk thing.
yeah, they're like, and I hate to say it, but they are like a fraternity appealing version of ska. Like, hey, dudes, bros, let's go get a beer and chill to Smash Mouth.
Well, the thing is, I can't really speak to how successful they do the ska side of it.
No,
but
this is during the era where people that weren't ska bands were just adding a ska sound to their stuff. Like, No Doubt does it, Goldfinger does it, Sublime had some of it. They weren't necessarily a ska band; they just had a little bit of that sound thrown in.
Well, but the problem is the punk side of it. It's really shitty, fake ass punk. You know. To go back to Devin Townsend for a moment, he put out an album as a band called Punky Brewster, which it's a story about a metal band whose instruments break in the middle of them performing a song. So they immediately switched to becoming a punk band because they don't need to have working instruments to be a punk band. And so there's a song at the end, like near the end of the album, called Fake Punk, where he's just basically talking about how he's a fake punk. It's like, I'll write a mean song, I'll say a dirty word, and stuff like that. And that kept running through my mind at every moment of this album was, wow, this is so fucking fake. Like, I don't buy anything that he is, you said frat, you say frat, like, that's exactly the best way to describe it is, it's basically music for posers.
I did, and I'm not going to argue this in any way whatsoever, but I thought that what I mean they were more legit is that they weren't trying to sell movie songs. That's it. They weren't trying to sell soundtrack songs, and just to sell at Disneyland. You know what I mean? It's hard to describe.
Well,
I ain't good with words.
Like, it really feels like they're a trend chasing band as opposed to I'm gonna phrase it like this, a trend setting band.
Okay.
They were seeing, oh, ska is becoming popular. Oh, this is becoming popular. Let's do that. Let's try and be rancid, but we don't have any. There's nothing legit about us, but let's try it anyway. Or we're basically like, we're fake it until you make it, sort of thing. And I think that's kind of why they kind of went a little bit more mainstream rock in those later albums.
Well, do you think that Everclear are posers because they went to Portland because they could get their sound more successful there? That's different, right? Like, they already had their sound. They just went to a place where it was more successful.
I think there's a difference between selling out and going to where you can actually make money. Yeah,
but in Portland, and it's weird, in Portland they call Everclear a bunch of sellouts because they left Portland to go to Seattle. And I'm like, guys, it's a 2-hour difference. What the fuck are you talking about?
But then again, a lot of the sellout stuff is also just I saw them before they were someone goes popular, how dare you?
Oh,
you
right,
You should be struggling artists forever and never make money and never actually fulfill your dreams because it's special to me.
All right, what is your next album?
Let's see. My next album is Juno Reactor's Bible of Dreams. And I have to say this album is very important to my musical development. This was a first for me. It's like, this is, when I was handed a copy of this, electronic music changed. Because, I was listening to the house stuff that was springing up in pop culture. Daft Punk and Chemical Brothers, Crystal Method, Bad Boys of Prodigy, that sort of stuff. It was basically rave music. And then I heard this, and this is where it started to change because, it's like, yeah, there's fat beats and stuff on this album, but this was like soundtrack music in a way.
It's atmospheric. It sets a tone that's not necessarily meant for like intensity and dancing and stuff like that. What do they call this anyway? Air is a band like this where they have just synth moods.
Well, Air's a lot more like not necessarily ambient, but it's like Air kind of fits in that trip hop thing. This stuff it's a little bit of jungle. It's a little bit of a lot of things. That's kind of like I don't think I ever wrote down what genre this necessarily hits because it is kind of, it's not necessarily it's in its own genre, but it's stuff where because of this is where we've heard Future Sound of London and Underworld and Orbital, Aphex Twin and stuff like that. That's where a lot of those things I discovered after this. It's because of this album that's where my musical taste said, oh, let me try something new and different. Now, it's not that this isn't dancey, but like I said, this feels like the film score stuff, which is ironic because Geno Reactor would later on be responsible for some of the music in Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions.
Okay.
Like the big action sequences that especially from Reloaded, are Geno Reactor songs.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I only had the soundtrack for the first movie. I never had the second and third one.
Yeah, it's like it's not their. I won't go. Oh my God, it's their best work, but it is definitely that was the highlight of their career. But dude, yeah, this basically is different than what you would normally have heard if I hadn't already shown you different electronic music.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've had a few that were atmospheric before this.
Yeah, but yeah, I had to do this one because this was the stop for me. This was the first thing that set me on this other path to start learning things and learning of other bands. So that is it for me. Did you have any other thoughts?
Nope, that's it.
So what is next for you?
Okay, so my last album of this episode, because, guys, it gets long. Harvey Danger, Where Have All the Merrymakers Gone? A definite top 5 album of all time, maybe my favorite band. This switches a lot. If you listen to the show, my favorite bands have been Devo, Oingo Boingo, Beastie Boys, and Harvey Danger. It's always those four that constantly bounce around. Harvey Danger, of course, having the smallest catalog of the bunch. Best song I've ever heard is Flagpole Sitta. I fucking adore it so much. And I remember the first time I heard it was on the trailer for Disturbing Behavior. I would not have gone to the theater, I think, if it hadn't been for that song getting me so much into the trailer. And the movie's fine. It's whatever. I know some people think it's cheesy crap. It's fine. It's a little messy. But I listened to that album over and over and over. And to me, Harvey Danger, if you were to describe their lyrics, it is lyrical hopscotch. They're so dense and complicated and exact opposite what was going on in, I guess, like a poppy sound in alternative. You know what I mean? Like Harvey Danger obviously has a lot of pop sensibilities, but what they're talking about and the way they structure stuff sometimes is a little unusual. You don't like the album, do you?
I don't want to hurt your feelings.
No.
I only knew Flagpole Sitta from this, and that song is great. No one can deny that is that's a really fun song. I love it. I have it on my Rock Band, all that stuff. It's the only song that had any oomph for me.
Really? You didn't like the opening song Carlotta Valdez, which is about the movie Vertigo, by the way?
The entire thing just was a dud.
Wow.
I genuinely was surprised. Like, and it's not because you would hype them up over this time, but it's like I'm sitting there going, I've never heard this album. I've only know 2 songs by Harvey Danger. It's this and Cream and Bastards Rise.
Okay.
And And it's like, and Great Bastards Rise, I think is fine. But it's like I'd never heard this album. So I'm going, so I sat down and was listening to it and just kind of went, wow, this is there.
I don't know. It's just lyrics like the looming shape of winter, dusk, and pending. It's so complicated and goes against the grain of what would have been a popular radio song. And I love the guitar work. I love his voice. It's just so immense. Old Hat is I'm a zero floating in a sea of higher numbers. Oh my god, I feel that. I feel this whole fucking album. Jack the Lion is one of the saddest songs. It's so about a dying grandfather, and even Radio Silence, which is the last one on this, is so good. This is immensely personal for me. This is one of the most important albums of my life.
And it's like I really feel bad for saying anything negative about it. I really do. This out of all the albums that were like, this was the one I was actually looking the most forward to listening to, and it really did not hit me, and I'm genuinely shocked at that, honestly.
They were supposed to. I was supposed to go see them when they were in Fort Wayne, and I was in a lot of pain. I had hurt my back, and I didn't go. And I was like, "Oh, of course I'm going to see them again. They're going to be huge." Nope. And then I moved up to Portland because they're a phenomenon up in the Pacific Northwest, and they broke up right as I moved there, and they no longer performed. They've never performed since, and I'm so heartbroken.
Oh, dude, that's rough, because not being able to see a band that you really want to see, and they end up leaving, dude, that's rough.
Alrighty, what's next?
Oh, I don't think you're gonna hate this one, but the last one is Switchblade Symphony's "Bread and Jam for Francis."
Wasn't that like the atmospheric electronica one?
Kind of. I only recently read this description. I think this is really the most apt way to describe it. Switchblade Symphony is what would happen if Siouxsie and the Banshees did trip hop.
Okay, yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, it's goth music. They're a darkwave band, which is it's goth music, but a lot more ethereal. Basically, it's kind of like basically every band that's on Project Records. But Cocteau Twins is a band that kind of like the front runner for this, although not necessarily darkwave. Bands that liked what Cocteau Twins did would ultimately do this, and Witches, the opening track from this album, is a mandatory Halloween song for me. And this is an album that I use to actually chill the fuck out. Sometimes you get those days where you're just, angry and everything is just pissing you off. I generally put this thing on, and it just is able to kind of lift all that stuff. I don't need to burn through my anger by putting on something aggressive with this one. It's just okay, let's calm down. Let's calm the beast within. And it's a beautiful little gothy album, and it's kind of a shame that this band only had 3 records, and they really kind of burned out super quick, sadly.
Isn't it funny that both of our last albums of this episode are both by bands that only had 3 albums?
Yeah, and it's just the idea of just people not, it's like whatever it is that kept them together just stopped.
It's hard. It's not like a movie where you just come and go or you're contractually obligated. Some bands, they just instantly implode because of whatever reason. I mean, it could be a million reasons why a band can't hold together,
True that.
Yeah. All right, that is it for this episode. Come back for part 2, everybody. See ya.
Later.